من الأخبار السياسية والاقتصادية الهامة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Algeria's ambassador to Addis Ababa and permanent representative to the African Union, Ms. Salma Malika Haddadi, has been elected as deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission. The 38th and ordinary session of the African Union Summit is continuing today in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, with the participation of several African heads of state and government. The State Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has reaffirmed Algeria's solidarity with Lebanon during a phone call with the Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam. And in the occupied Palestinian territories, 3 Palestinians have been killed in bombardments carried out by the Israeli army against Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. Good afternoon. First in our news, as I said in the headlines, Algeria's ambassador to Addis Ababa and permanent representative to the African Union, Ms. Salma Malika Haddadi, has been elected as deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission. Ms. Ocharfi has more details in this report.
Ms. Haddadi said her election was a new gain for Algeria under the leadership of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune.
This is an achievement and a further enshrining at the African level, given that Algeria's policy under the wise leadership of the President of the Republic is even more committed to the African continent and the African Union. There are many initiatives and actions that the President of the Republic has undertaken within the African Union to consolidate bilateral relations between African countries. So it is a real achievement for our country.
She added that she has always played a leading role within the Organization of African Unity, and it will always be the case.
The election reflects Algeria's position and its African belonging and the trust of African countries in Algeria's wise leadership. Since its independence, Algeria has always had a strong position within the Organization of the African Unity and African Union. We'll keep working to maintain Algeria's estimated position with our wise leadership of the organization, notably in the administrative and financial areas. We will always be at the required level with God's will. Of course, the position of Vice President of the African Union Commission is of major importance as it allows the Commission to carry out its tasks the best possible way and allows the African Union to implement the 2063 roadmap, notably silencing the guns.
Ms. Haddadi replaces Rwanda Monique Nsanzabagwana, whose term has expired. Aged 47, Ms. Haddadi has more than 2 decades of experience in favor of peace and unity on the continent. She held the position of Director General for Africa at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from March 2023 to April 2024. Between 2019 and 2023, she was Extraordinary Ambassador and Plenipotentiary to Kenya and South Sudan. From 2015 to 2019, she served as Minister Counselor and Deputy Head of Mission at the Algerian Embassy in Ethiopia and the African Union. From 2013 to 2015, she was Deputy Director for Social Development at the General Directorate of Political Affairs and International Security of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Her main mission in this position was to prepare and coordinate Algeria's participation in global discussions on issues related to family, women, children, health, youth, people with disabilities, sports and the elderly, and the sustainable development goals. Meanwhile, Djibouti's Foreign Minister Mohammed Ali Yusuf was elected as head of the African Union Commission, securing the backing of regional leaders in Addis Ababa. Yusuf vowed to prioritize peace and security as Africa faces conflicts and major aid cuts.
And the African Union Commission is the AU Secretariat, and it undertakes the day-to-day activities of the Union. Asia Bakar has more details.
The African Union Commission is based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and its functions include representing the AU and defending its interests, initiating proposals to be submitted to the AU's bodies, as well as implementing their decisions, acting as the custodian of the AU Constitutive Act, liaising closely the AU bodies to guide, support, and monitor the AU's performance to ensure conformity and harmony with agreed policies, strategies, programs, and projects. The AU Commission also provides operational support for all AU bodies, assists member states in implementing the AU's programs, drafts AU common positions, and coordinates member states' actions in international negotiations, in addition to many other tasks. The Commission is composed of a chairperson, deputy chairperson, and 6 commissioners plus staff. The Assembly elects the AU Commission chairperson and AU Commission deputy chairperson. The Executive Council elects the 6 AU Commission commissioners who are appointed by the Assembly. Commission members' terms are for 4 years, renewable once. Elections and terms are governed by the AU Assembly Rules of Procedure and Executive Council Rules of Procedure and the Commission statutes. The chairperson of the Commission is the Chief Executive Officer, legal representative of the AU, and the Commission's Chief Accounting Officer. He or she is directly responsible to the Executive Council for the discharge of his or her duties. The chairperson of the AUC is elected by the Assembly for a 4-year term, renewable once. Election is by secret ballot, and a 2/3 majority of member states eligible to vote. The deputy chairperson assists the chairperson in the execution of his or her functions for the smooth running of the Commission and is in charge of administration and finance. The deputy acts as the chairperson in his or her absence. The deputy chairperson is elected by the Assembly for a 4-year term, renewable once. Election is by secret ballot, and a 2/3 majority of member states eligible to vote. The deputy must not be from the same region as the chairperson of the Commission.
And the 38th Ordinary Session of the African Union Summit is continuing today in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, with the participation of several African heads of state and government. On the second day and final day of the works, a high-level discussion is expected to be held under the theme Mobilizing African Investment and Financing for the Implementation of the 2063 Agenda, which includes a call for action through coordination and the creation of strategic partnerships to ensure that Africa's development be inclusive and resilient. The session will also highlight key strategies and approaches to mobilize African financing to implement the priorities of the 2063 Agenda. The main themes to be explored will include, among others, domestic resources mobilization, concessional financing and innovation mechanisms to alleviate debt pressure while continuing to finance development on the continent, and public-private partnerships for infrastructure development. Meanwhile, the Minister of Environment and Quality of Life, Mrs. Najiba Jilali, will participate in her capacity as representative of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, in the summit of the Committee of Heads of State and Government on Climate Change. It should be noted that the 38th AU Summit focused on promoting the cause of justice and the payment of compensation to Africans, a concrete step towards making up for the historical injustices. It's worth recalling that the first day summit in which the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, took part was notably marked by the election of the Algerian ambassador to Addis Ababa and its permanent representative to the African Union, Ms. Salma Malika Haddadi, to the post of Vice President of the AU Commission after obtaining a landslide victory of 33 votes. Now, the Minister of Interior, Local Authorities and Town Planning, Brahim Merad, is taking part today in the 42nd session of the Council of Arab Interior Ministers held in the Tunisian capital, Tunis. A statement by the ministry said that Mr. Murad was welcomed at Carthage International Airport by the Minister of Interior of the Republic of Tunisia, Khalid Nouri, the Secretary General of the Council of Arab Interior Ministers, Mohammed Ben Ali Kouman, the President of the Naif Arab University of Security Sciences, and the Algerian Ambassador to Tunis. Still in Algiers, the Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, Army General Saad Chenghriha, has received the head of the Equipment Development Department of the Central Military Commission of the People's Republic of China, Army General Xu Shui-qian. Masoud Sharfi has more details.
During the meeting, which was attended by Chenghriha and Army General Xu Shui-qian, the two sides discussed the state of cooperation between the two countries and exchanged analyses and views on matters of common interest. He recalled the historic ties between the two brotherly peoples and the mutual commitment to strengthening military cooperation between the armies of the two countries. Moreover, he emphasized the historic nature of the relations between the two countries, as China was the first non-Arab country to recognize the provisional government of the Algerian Republic. Army General Chenghriha said that the Algerian-Chinese relations were today witnessing remarkable progress and continuous growth in various fields, particularly in the military field.
The Algerian-Chinese relations are currently experiencing a significant progress and an increasing impetus in various fields, particularly military, as a result of the activation of various newly set up mechanisms to deepen cooperation in a manner that aligns with the will of the highest authorities of the two countries in upgrading these relations to the level of excellence.
For his part, the Chinese Army General Xu Shui-qian expressed his joy at visiting Algeria, praising the level of coordination and mutual understanding with the Algerian side regarding the topics discussed during this meeting.
And the Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has had a phone call from the Lebanese Prime Minister, Mr. Nawaf Salam. During the call, which follows the official visit paid by the State Minister to Beirut as special envoy of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, both parties discussed the developments in southern Lebanon, particularly the implementation of the ceasefire agreement and the withdrawal of Israeli occupation forces from the Lebanese territory. In this regard, Mr. Attaf reaffirmed Algeria's solidarity with Lebanon in the face of blatant violations of its sovereignty and territorial integrity, emphasizing Algeria's readiness to continue its support for Lebanon, particularly in its capacity as non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. And still in the Middle East, 3 Palestinians were today killed in bombardments carried out today by the Israeli army against Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Asya Bakar has more details.
The news agency Wafa stressed that several others were wounded in the drone attack which targeted a group of Palestinians east of Rafah. The attack came in the wake of a new exchange of prisoners carried out in Gaza and allowing for the release of 369 Palestinian prisoners. 3 Israeli prisoners were released as part of the operation, the 6th of the like, to be carried out under the supervision of the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC. The exchange of prisoners is an implementation of the first stage of the ceasefire agreement reached on January 19th, aimed at paving the way for a restoration of peace in the Palestinian enclave, where the population is lacking almost everything. In this connection, Russia reiterated the necessity to abide by the ceasefire, describing the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip as disastrous. The spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry spoke out in favor of the delivery of an emergency aid to the Palestinian enclave, where she stressed life must return to normal. This came as the demonstrations were staged in several American cities, including New York City, to protest against the U.S. administration's plan to resettle the population of Gaza. In this respect, a rally was held in Manhattan amid freezing temperatures and snowfalls to denounce the pressure exerted by the U.S. administration on several countries to force them to agree to the Palestinians' displacement from Gaza. Rejecting the plan as unacceptable, the representative of the State of Palestine to the Arab League, Muhannad Al-Aklouk, has the following.
I am the representative of the State of Palestine to the Arab League. I have come here in the nearest point to our beloved Gaza Strip, to our people, to my family in Gaza, to say that the Arab League and the Arab peoples are standing by our people in the Gaza Strip, and to tell them, as always, that the first step to thwart the illegitimate calls for the displacement of Palestinians are to make people stick to their land, and this is done through providing the Palestinian people with the means of steadfastness. We have seen foodstuffs and medical equipment which are about to enter the Gaza Strip. It is undoubtful that our people in the Gaza Strip are going through a terrible suffering, a mass genocide perpetrated by Israel for over 16 months now. We will all work to make the Palestinian people stick to their land. They will not abandon their land. The Palestinian people need a decent life. Israel deliberately destroyed life in the Gaza Strip, but we are confident that our strong and steadfast people will bring life back to the Gaza Strip and will remain on their land.
In the meantime, in the West Bank, the Israeli occupying forces have pursued for the 27th consecutive day their acts of aggression against the town of Jenin, killing and wounding scores of Palestinians. According to the news agency Wafa, at least 25 people were killed in the Israeli attacks targeting the refugee camp of Jenin.
And in Lebanon, at least 2 people were killed in Israeli airstrikes targeting a vehicle in the southern part of the country. The news agency ANI stressed that 4 others were wounded in the attack which occurred in the Iqlim al-Tufah region. Under the ceasefire enforced on November 27, the Israeli troops must withdraw from Lebanon's southern part to allow for the deployment of the UN Blue Helmets and Lebanese forces there. However, the ceasefire, which put an end to 2 months of violent attacks, has been repeatedly violated by the Israeli army. And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for our weekly program, the International Event of the Week, by our colleague Mariam Bershi. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International, and bye-bye for now.
The International Event of the Week.
Diplomatic efforts intensified this week to try and salvage the fragile ceasefire enforced by January 19th, which the Israeli occupying authorities threatened to end unless all hostages are released. The Israeli Prime Minister warned this week that intense fighting would resume in Gaza, saying that Israeli troops will be deployed to this effect inside and around the Palestinian territory in blatant violation of the ceasefire agreement. Reacting to the Israeli Premier's ultimatum, the Palestinian Hamas movement issued a statement renewing its commitment to the ceasefire and accusing Israel of jeopardizing the ceasefire. The Israeli Prime Minister's threat followed US President Trump's warning this week that unless all hostages are freed, hell would break out. Asked if by reiterating his approach to Gaza, is President Trump seeking to reshape the US involvement in the Middle East or just pursuing his previous policies in the region, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi had the following.
It will take major concessions on the Arab world or a firm, united position from the Arab leaders for Donald Trump to reconsider his position. But there is a circle among think tanks, experts and policymakers in Washington who argue that President Donald Trump's plan makes sense strategically and is consistent with his goal to end extensive United States involvement in the Middle East. To them, the takeover of Gaza by the United States will allow the United States to save cost in longer terms on security measures. This include providing assistance to Israel around $1.4 billion annually, and other security measures and support and the cost the United States has taken as a result of its protection of Israel, and as recently as we've seen in its support in the assault on Gaza. To this group, Trump expects the Arab world to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza and under his ownership. And only to the extent they will pay for it, and only to the extent they will revive, in this case, the Arab League initiative, so that it will include retraction of the position for Israel to withdraw from the territories pre-1967, perhaps renege on their demand of the recognition or the establishment of a viable Palestinian state, along with pushing for the disarmament of the Palestinian resistance, and perhaps they go further, the Lebanese resistance. Only to that extent that there is a possibility, this group think, that Donald Trump will accept that kind of proposal from the Arab world. But in retrospect, one could see that Trump perspective is outdated, and for that matter, it is not a starter, as many other experts have determined, and it would only aggravate the situation. And it is this reason also that might Trump's supporters and advisor might push him to accept a resolution or to consider his plan to take over Gaza and get rid of the Palestinians.
King Abdullah II of Jordan rejected President Donald Trump's plan to resettle the Gazans in the kingdom. Following a meeting with President Trump this week in Washington, he reiterated in a message posted on X Jordan's steadfast position against the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, which is in line with, as he recalled, the unified Arab stance. President Trump's plan to trigger off strong reaction and condemnations was also ruled out by Egypt, which says that it plans to present together with Jordan a vision of reconstruction of Gaza that allows the Palestinians to stay in their land. The UN, the EU and the Arab states have rejected President Trump's plan on a resettlement of the Palestinians, highlighting that the forcible transfer of populations is considered a crime under the Geneva Conventions. In this connection, French President Emmanuel Macron described President Trump's plan as unrealistic and as running counter the two-state solution as a means of securing a lasting peace in the region. He was quoted by CNN as saying that the plan for Gaza must be a political operation and not a transaction operation. Asked about what President Donald Trump's plan on Gaza could mean for the already fragile geopolitics on the region, our political analyst from California, Hamoud Salhi, had this to say.
Donald Trump's plan poses a serious threat to the region's stability. It is ill-advised. It signals the end of Palestinian aspiration for a statehood and the end of the two-state solution, if that even exists today. Worse, it gives Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu unwavering support, enabling him to continue his ethnic cleansing agenda, as we currently see in the West Bank. Moreover, it clears the way for the Prime Minister to renege on the remaining phases of the current ceasefire deal, with the United States no longer committed by this approach to guarantee its implementation. The United States is a signatory or a guarantor of the implementation of the ceasefire together with Qatar and Egypt. Simply put, President Donald Trump is doing Prime Minister Netanyahu's illegal work. He has thrown all America's power behind the Prime Minister and in particular his support for the genocidal activities and what is happening, the destruction of homes, the jailing and jailing of Palestinians in the West Bank is a clear example of that. President Donald Trump also issued orders against members of the International Criminal Court, and this is another example of the impact that will have this decision or this approach on the peace in the Middle East. But just like Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu failed in his assaults on the Palestinians, it is highly likely that President Trump's approach will also fail, because it's the wrong plan for the Palestinians, and the Palestinians know it is a non-starter.
The Arab League will hold an emergency meeting on February 27th to examine the serious developments in the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories. The organization pointed out that President Trump's plan that triggered global condemnation will threaten a fragile ceasefire in Gaza and fuel instability in the region. The Arab League Secretary General warned the participants to the World Government Summit meeting held this week in Dubai that if President Trump pressed ahead with his plan, he would lead the Middle East into a new cycle of crisis with, as he put it, a damaging effect on peace and stability. He said that the Arab Peace Initiative endorsed in 2002 based on the two-state option would be reintroduced during the forthcoming Arab League Summit. Asked on whether the American president was ready to reconsider his plans for the Middle East and try to safeguard the U.S. interest, which cannot be preserved unless the region's stability is ensured, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi commented the issue.
It is more likely to suggest that President Donald Trump's approach to the Middle East is the same or is a continuation of his previous policies in this region. But at this point, there are so many uncertainties with his approach to the Middle East. But we need to differentiate between his approach to the Palestinian cause and that to the region as a whole. Regionally, there is a consensus in the United States administration that Iran is a threat to American security in the region. But beyond that, it is unclear what to do next, other than pushing for more sanctions on Iran. Trump appears to like direct talk, but the Iranians have responded with their own condition. The same thing can be said about uncertainties about the situation in other parts of the region, including Syria and Lebanon. On the Palestinian side, it's clear that Trump is still pushing with his agenda of previous term, pushing further on normalization. In particular, he seems to put his prize, Saudi Arabia. He's also continuing to push with ending Palestinian existence by recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and banning UNRWA, and removing sanctions on individual settlers in the West Bank, and giving carte blanche to Netanyahu in the West Bank. The latest move to own Gaza is also goes along with his previous position. But another indication that he's continuing on the same path is the kind of cabinet or the kind of U.S. officials, appointees that Donald Trump has in those that represent the United States and Israel, and those who work in the State Department. The dominant ideology of this group is neoconservatism, and they all have strong ties to the extremist right in the Jewish state. The challenge with pursuing the same approach is a bit